Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Program.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 489 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as ever by former heavyweight world title challenger, the main man himself, Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing this week?
I'm doing great, my man. How about you?
Always good when speaking with you, Eddie. We're going to dive straight into the review part of the show. There's quite a bit to review. There's not too much to preview, and I don't think there's too much news as of just yet. So anyway, like I say, let's dive straight into that review part. We're going to start here last Saturday at the Coliseo Tomás Donés in Puerto Rico. Where else? We're gonna touch on this. Like I say, it was live on DAZN. We saw Alfredo Santiago move to 17-2. He was able to pick up a stoppage win. His opponent, Javier Fortuna, retired on his stall at the end of the 8th round. Didn't come out for round 9. Fortuna now 39-6 with a draw. That one for the WBO NABO super lightweight title. Also on that card, the main attraction, Subriel Matias returned back in the ring to win in ways. He's now 22-2, a TKO for him in the 8th round against Gabriel Valenzuela, now 30-4 with a draw. Like I say, TKO in the 8th round. Subriel Matias has still won all of his fights that he's won by knockout. He hasn't won on decision or by decision at any point. Every single one of his 22 have come within the distance. Moving now then to the Bournemouth International Centre in Bournemouth, Dorset, United Kingdom. This is a card that I was actually at. I was sat ringside in the second row. Really interesting place, I guess. It was a small venue, but I liked it. It was like I say, not a big venue, but I quite liked the layout of the place, and it was weird because I was staying in a hotel around the corner, and it was like a 2-minute walk from the hotel. I just kind of walked down this like dark path, but it was like dimly lit by like street lamps, I'd say, that were kind of spread out quite far. And right outside, or certainly the entrance that I went inside, because I went into some kind of back door entrance, and just round the corner from that entrance, you can see the pier, the Bournemouth Beach Pier or whatever it's called, and that was all lit up blue. So it was quite cool because I went on this nighttime walk from the hotel. Like I said, it was only a 2-minute or 3-minute walk, but I'm walking along, and it was dimly lit, and I could see the sea, and right out into the sea, and the moonlight kind of across the sea, and the pier lit up in blue. It was quite cool. I was thinking, wow, I don't feel like I'm about to go to a boxing event, but that was different. But like I say, an intimate little venue. Well, yes, it wasn't small. It wasn't like York Hall intimate, but yeah, it was interesting, and I enjoyed it. I don't really tend to travel outside of London too much to go to shows, but it was nice to get over there. A couple of hours drive, and it was new. So I quite liked that. I wouldn't mind going to another fight card in Bournemouth if there were to be one. But anyway, enough of the travel vlogging or blogging or whatever it's called these days. Let's get on to the boxing stuff. We're going to touch on the undercard. Karol Italma with a TKO win for him in the third. He's now 13-1. His brother Moses Italma was there, as his main supporter. His opponent Michael Lubwizach now 18-15 with 2 draws. Lubrizach down prior to the stoppage in the third. Karol Itaume, one of the 2 people on the entire card to record a stoppage win. The other person to get a stoppage was Henry Turner. He's now 14-1. He was back to winning ways. A TKO for him in the first against Miguel Antin. Now 20-20 with a draw. All the other fights on the card went the distance. It was a massive, massive blow to the card when Joe Joyce pulled out, I believe, on the Wednesday. He was scheduled to fight. And there wasn't actually an announcement at all from Queensbury to confirm that Joe Joyce wasn't on the card. It was like there was a rumour that started on social media, then it snowballed, and then all of a sudden there's like boxing pages tweeting about it. And I'm thinking, are they credible boxing pages? I've not heard of them. And then some of the more credible ones started tweeting about it, but then you wondered if it was actually coming from a good source, or were they just copying news from smaller pages? I did try to reach out and actually get official confirmation. I didn't hear back, and then all of a sudden it disappeared off BoxRec, and we kind of knew what was going to be happening there. But it was a shame for me because I wanted to go to that fight night because Archie Sharp was fighting, and of course Joyce was a big attraction. When Sharp pulled out, and then on the Wednesday Joyce pulled out, I was thinking, oh man, what a shame. But like I say, it was still a decent night. Just a shame that it clashed with the other card that I'm going to get onto in a few minutes. But again, moving up the card once again, Mace Rueg now 12-1. He loses his a split decision loss for him against Liam Dillon, now 15-2 with a draw. Really good fight, actually. Really good fight. Liam Dillon was in very, very good shape. Not that he comes in bad shape at all. He's always in good shape. But I felt he looked extremely, extremely well. And yeah, I felt that he set a very high pace as he does. He was putting the pressure on. And again, I kind of said this on last week's show. I just felt that Rueg might not have the punching power to keep Liam Dillon at bay. And that was pretty much what I saw. You know, there were people ringside that saw it the other way. Like I say, it was a split decision. I think it was... what judge was it now? I think it was... Terry O'Connor, I believe it was, that had the crazy wide card to Mace Rueg. And that was just madness to me. I mean, wow, I didn't see the fight like that. Like I say, Rueg had his moments in the fight. I felt like there were many, many rounds that were very close. I felt that he was a tidier, probably the tidier fighter, but he was just largely outworked. And that constant pressure from Liam Dillon, and the fact that when Mace Rueg would land a decent little combination, it just didn't seem to have much of an effect on Liam Dillon. He kind of just walked through Rueg, really. Again, sometimes he'd take a couple to land some, but he was constantly coming forward, setting that high pace, and for me was throwing way more punches and outworked Rueg. But yeah, good fight, that one. Also on the card, Louis, I think they're calling him now, Louis Edmondson, now 11-0, a unanimous decision for him over 12 rounds for the Commonwealth light heavyweight title against the previously undefeated Oluwatosin Kejawa, now 11-1. Relatively straightforward win there for Edmondson. Dominated the opponent, who, off the top of my head, was an African guy living in Bristol. And then, yeah, the main event, really good performance from friend of the show, Ryan Garner, moving to 17-0 now. More importantly, he's now the EBU European Super Featherweight Champion. He also has the WBC International. Very good performance from Ryan Garner. A unanimous decision over 12 rounds. He was able to take the O away from the previously undefeated Spaniard, Salvador Jimenez, now 14-1-1. Yeah, again, really, really good performance from Ryan Garner. He set a really high pace in the fight, pretty much from the off, and the Spaniard, to his credit, was a lot tougher than I expected him to be. You know, Spaniards, I don't think, are known for their durability, especially these days in boxing. And I felt he was a very, very tough guy. Stood up to a lot of big shots from Garner. Garner was catching him with some lovely shots. Garner was also missing sometimes, where he was just a little bit too eager. The crowd, wow, it was kicking off in the crowd every few minutes, by the way. There was many fights in the crowd. It was crazy, but the support for Ryan Garner was through the roof, when the Saints go marching in, they were chanting that inside the venue, and I think they were actually giving him a little bit of a boost, because every time they started singing his name, he would find an extra gear. But yeah, very dominant performance from Garner. He probably won every round. He was very much in control. Jimenez again landed a decent punch here and there, but nothing to make you worried. But yeah, again, very dominant performance from Ryan Garner. The pace that he set and just the accuracy. I know that I've mentioned he missed a few big shots at times where he'd really load up and try to maybe was a little bit overeager. That aside, I felt he was quite accurate. Again, the pressure that he put on the Spaniard was impressive, and he sustained that. It was a sustained performance from start to finish from Ryan Garner, and I think if he is able to do that, against other fighters, then he's going to be a very hard man to beat. I was very impressed with his motor, with his engine the other night. He didn't seem to get weaker as the fight went on. He seemed to be able to just be just as strong in round 1 as he was in round 12. He seems like, this weight is perfect for Ryan Garner. I think he probably makes it pretty well. And yeah, again, you could see was very well suited to this weight the other night. I don't know if it was just this one camp that went really well. I don't know, but I was very impressed with the work rate and the intensity of everything. And yeah, he answered a lot of questions. I think he ticked a lot of boxes. And like I said, there's going to be other guys that he's going to come up against. I think they're teasing the Reece Bellotti fight. That's probably a step backwards maybe, but I really like Ryan Garner. Very nice guy as well, and I wish him all the very best moving forward. Great performance from him. Moving now then to the SSE Arena in Belfast, Northern Ireland. I'm going to be very quick on this one because I missed most of it. We saw Tommy McCarthy get stopped. He was the big favourite going in, by the way. He got stopped in the 6th round. TKO for Stephen Ward, now 15-3. McCarthy down in the 2nd and also in the 6th and final round for him. Like I say, McCarthy was a big favourite. I said on last week's show, this is kind of the battle of who needs to retire immediately. It looks like Tommy McCarthy is seriously done now. He needs to pack it in. Also on the card, Kurt Walker moved to 12-0, but it wasn't easy. A majority decision over 10 rounds against the very tough and game Leon Woodstock, who once again provides the paying fans value for money. He's now 16-4. Also on the card, Craig Richards, friend of the show, with a fantastically dominating performance. He was absolutely fantastic the other night. He's now 19-4 with a draw, a KO in the end in the 8th round against Padraig McCrory, now 19-2. McCrory, knocked out with a body shot, a left hand to the body in that 8th round, but it was Craig Richards all the way from the off. It really was, and he dominated McCrory, and it was very impressive. Like I say, I said on last week's show, obviously I want Craig Richards to win, but he didn't look good against Willie Hutchinson, and there were question marks for me. And again, I don't want to go into it. I spoke to Craig after our interview a few weeks ago, and he told me some things that I'm not gonna repeat on here. It's some stuff that he left out of the interview, possibly intentionally, but it made me believe that things just weren't right for that Willie Hutchinson fight, and he seemed like he gave me his word that he's back to it now, and his performance showed that. I was really, really impressed. I thought it was fantastic, and on paper that was a dangerous fight for Craig. It really was, but he come through it with flying colours, and he dominated, McCrory in McCrory's backyard. Also on the card, controversy at its absolute finest here. Luis Coria, somehow 21-0 now. He was able to pick up the win because his opponent, 14-0 Paddy Donovan, was disqualified. What a weird fight this one was. An 8th round disqualification win for Luis Coria. Coria was cut on both eyes from punches. He was down once in the 8th round. Paddy Donovan was in full control, right? Paddy Donovan gets a point deducted in the 6th round and the 8th round for use of his head. And then he's disqualified for dropping Coria with a punch probably about 2 seconds after the bell in that 8th and final round, like I say. So, he let himself down because Paddy Donovan had the fight in the bag, but he'd already had 2 points taken off. He was on his kind of last legs. He was being, told that he cannot do this anymore, and then decides to, load up with a big shot 2 seconds after the bell had sounded. I don't know if it was exactly 2 seconds, but it definitely hit him after the bell, and gets himself disqualified. Winds up crying afterwards. He was devastated because Luis Coria, it seems, doesn't want to give him the rematch, and he wants to move on to a world title fight next. And you can't really blame him, but it sucks big time for Paddy Donovan. Paddy Donovan showed his class in that fight. Aside from the use of the head and that punch after the bell, he was in full control. He was cruising. He didn't need to do any of that. It was very, very silly, very much inexperience on show, and he's just shot himself in the foot. That's really the best way to put it. He can't be mad at anyone but himself. He kind of gave the referee no other option. He's just got himself to blame there, really. It was a very unfortunate ending to that fight, and it was a good fight as well in terms of the action. It sucks for Paddy Donovan, but Luis Coria has to do what's best for his own career. Moving on, leaving Northern Ireland there, moving on to the big one at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York, USA. I'm going to be coming to you a lot here, Eddie, because I missed a few fights on this card. I got in from, obviously, the boxing event that I was at, and got back to the hotel, ended up streaming these fights on my phone. And I was sitting there, like, what's crazy about this hotel? I'm not going to name drop them, but they didn't have any charging ports next to the bed. So I had to sit on the sofa and charge my phone while watching the card, because obviously when I was at boxing, I wasn't charging my phone. I got back, my phone was quite low, needed to charge it, but then the cards were already on, the prelims were already going on YouTube. So didn't really have any time to fully charge my phone, so I was kind of charging while I was watching, and that was probably a good thing, because if I was lying in bed, then I would have fallen asleep sooner. But basically, during the Gervonta Tank Davis fight, I was just watching through one eye, and I must have fell asleep. No, tell a lie. During the Gary Antoine Russell fight, I was watching through one eye, and I must have fell asleep, I'm not even joking, about 10 times during that fight, and I kept waking up like every 10 seconds, like, oh, what round's it in, and then just dropping back off. And then the Gervonta Tank Davis fight, I actually got in bed for, again, was watching through one eye, and I was actually sleeping in between rounds and waking up for the next round. It was torturous. And then I woke up hours later with my phone screen still on, the boxing had finished, and I had to Google the results. So that's how I found out. I did not see any of the controversy, and I haven't watched some of these back. I haven't had time, so I'm going to be relying on you heavily here. But what I did see on the prelims was Jarrett Hurd move to 25-4 with a draw. That was his 30th pro fight. He's decided to retire off the back of this. He lost a split decision to Johan Gonzalez, now 36-4. Johan Gonzalez just outworked Jarrett Hurd. That's just what it was. Jarrett Hurd, you know, it needs to be studied, the decline of Jarrett Hurd. Again, his style was never one for longevity, but he fell off the cliff so quickly. At one point, it was just like he got old overnight, and he was never able to claw back anywhere near to what he once was. He was a force at one point. I know that he was, I guess, you know, some people would call him, I don't really like the term weight bully, but people would call him a weight bully because he was massive at 154 and he would just walk guys down. He was a big guy, putting the pressure on. You know, it wasn't the prettiest of boxing styles, but I enjoyed his fights. He made them interesting, but yeah, you know, he's just not the same guy now, obviously up at middleweight. And yeah, very flat performance from him. He did have a couple of little moments where he looked decent, but again, just largely outworked by Johan Gonzalez, who I thought was very capable of upsetting Jarrett Hurd at this point, because Jarrett Hurd, you know, we've kind of known it for a couple of years. He's not got much left at all. So a good win there for Johan Gonzalez. Also on that card, we saw Yoenis Tellez. Again, I don't know if you saw this one, Eddie. If you did, then jump in. He's now 10-0. He was expected to go in there and stop J-Rock Williams, who's now 29-5 with a draw, friend of the show. But it ended up going 12 rounds, a unanimous decision for Tellez. I don't recall too much of this fight. I know I was definitely watching it. But yeah, it just seemed to go on for much longer than I expected. I expected a fast and an explosive start from Tellez, which we've seen him do a number of times. But yeah, Julian Williams was able to just hang in there, and yeah, you know, through the mid kind of rounds, there wasn't too much going on really. I guess you've got to credit J-Rock with that, but again, it's another loss for him. And it was unanimous, and yeah, I mean, he's probably showed there that he's still got a little bit left for another similar type of fight. A guy on the come up that wants a world champion on their resume, but yeah, you know, he's just in the same place he was before the fight, really. Again, I don't know if you saw any of that one, Eddie. Did you see any of that before we move up the card?
No, that's the. I didn't even know about the Jarrett Hurd as much, but I definitely didn't. I remember thinking like, damn, I didn't see
J-Rock.
I didn't see Julian J-Rock fight. Yeah,
okay,
but yeah, we can move on.
All right, cool. Well, I'll come to you for this one, Eddie. I'm hoping you saw this one. I saw bits of this as well, actually. It's coming back to me slowly. Alberto Puello, now 24-0. A split decision victory. He's still the WBC super lightweight world champion. That split decision came against Sandor Martin, now 42-4. We've seen Sandor Martin on the receiving end of a bad decision in the past against Teofimo Lopez. Was this the same, Eddie? Did you see it?
Honestly, this one, yeah, I've seen this one. It's hard to say because I saw it like when he was getting, it would be in exchanges, and sometimes he would be bossing it, he would be controlling it, and but it was like he would always in the exchanges seem to get hit with the worst shot. Like if you watch the replay of it, you're gonna say, "Oh, damn!" He was doing good in spots where he looked like he'd be winning the round or controlling the tempo and everything. And then there would be these exchanges that would happen, and his head would be up in the air, and he'd get caught with something pretty nasty. Didn't hurt him. He didn't go down. I mean, I don't want to say it didn't hurt him, but he didn't go down. But you seen the shot, and it was kind of like, "Ooh, good shot." You know what I mean? So, I mean, there were rounds that were close, and I thought at times Puello was kind of controlling the round, but then like Sandor Martin would pick it up, and it was kind of a back and forth thing. So I can understand why he got the decision. But did I think Sandor Martin probably got it? He probably did. He probably could have. I mean, it was close enough to where it was a little bit of confusion. There was a pretty decent amount of close rounds. It was like I said, it would be him getting hit with shots, even though it would have been a great exchange and he'd be doing great work. And then all of a sudden he get hit with something crazy at the end of it. It's just like his defensive responsibility, I don't think was where it needed to be. And I think that's part of the reason why he lost that fight. And probably now with Teofimo was probably a little more clear. But, I think that is the reason in some of these fights he loses. Now, granted, he has a big name for being robbed, or not necessarily robbed, but for being not given the decision when he may have deserved it. But this one was close enough to where you could kind of make the case for Puello as well. But would I have given it to Sandor Martin? Probably.
Yeah, he's been very, very unlucky on the scorecard, Sandor Martin. Again, I don't have too much to add to what you're saying, Eddie, and it's going to be the same for the next couple of fights that we have here. Let's move up the card once again then. Last week's guest, Jose Valenzuela, a.k.a. Rayo. He's now 14-3. He was dethroned, a unanimous decision over 12 rounds for Gary Antoine Russell, the new champion of the world, another friend of the show. He's now 18-1. He bounces back from his sole career defeat to Alberto Puello by winning a world title against Rayo, who was on a very, very good run. What I did see of this fight, I remember seeing obviously the early rounds. Am I right in saying this, Eddie? Because I believe I recall this. Gary Antoine Russell decided to fight with a slightly different style to usual. He set quite a high pace. It wasn't like crazy aggressive. I don't think he was loading up too much on his shots, but he just decided to set this fast pace, and he was putting the pressure on. But it was slightly different to what we're used to seeing from him. It was a little bit of he boxed, which again we've seen him do in the past at times, but he set this very high tempo and wasn't loading up on his shots, which is a bit unusual to usual. That's what I remember of it. I could have been making this up. It could have been half a dream.
No. You're right. He actually did do that. He threw, I think, if I'm not mistaken, over 800, maybe more. Maybe close to it. Was it close to 1,000? I can't remember. But he threw a lot of punches. His pace was really high. And early on, he was kind of, doing normal double, triple at a jab, kind of flicking a little bit. Not flicking, but you know what I mean? The biggest thing, and when I thought about it and then I watched him fight, I'm like, yeah, this guy can't. He's not going to be able to do anything with him. Even though Rayo's good and he's a good counter puncher, and he actually landed some decent shots here and there, I just think it just was a bad fight for him, a bad style matchup. It's a very difficult thing. Gary, the Russell brothers in general, all really fast-handed, guys that throw a decent amount of punches. Maybe they don't always constantly do it like he did at this fight, but they throw a lot of fast, quick combinations. And then on top of that, Gary Antoine got a good amount of pop on his. So there were periods of the fight where it looked like he was dangerously close to getting stopped. You know what I mean? Where Rayo was looking like he was about to get stopped. His face started to look the part. You could tell his confidence was shot down. Literally won just about, if not every, he won every round. I think two of the judges gave it 121 108. So it was a dominating performance. And you're right. He was somewhat boxing early on, I think, trying to feel out the situation, kind of seeing what he was going to do. And to be honest, Rayo landed some nice little counter shots here and there. They didn't get, I guess he didn't get all of it, but he did land some decent pop, good counter shots. But it was just, once the speed started to go and the combination started to really flow, and it was consistent throughout the entire fight that pace was set. It was just really nothing he could do because his style didn't favor that. He's not enough of a puncher in that situation to get enough respect from Gary Antoine Russell to where he could stop the onslaught. You understand what I'm saying? Like if it would have been like a puncher that if he hits you, there's like, ooh, you know what I mean? It's kind of stiffen you up here and there. Then he would have had to respect it and had to be a little more careful. But he got hit with some shots and you could see that maybe it did a little something, but it didn't do enough to keep him from doing and keeping that same pace that he had from the onset. So yeah, it was a rough fight for Rayo. I mean, he was thoroughly dominated.
Yeah, he did take to social media the following day, and he apologized to the fans for, in his words, letting them down. I said to him, like I said, you haven't let anyone down, blah, blah, blah. I hate to see fighters beat themselves up after the fight, getting upset with themselves for letting other people down when they're the only ones in the ring. But anyway, moving back on and focusing on that main event, the very controversy-ridden main event. Gervonta Tank Davis holds on to his belt. He's now 30-0 with a draw. Lamont Roach in the other corner, 25-1 with 2 draws. Like I say, Gervonta Davis hangs on to his title, a knockdown that was not counted when Gervonta Tank Davis chose to take a knee for a few seconds. Then he popped back up, went back to his corner, had his corner wipe his face, and then said to referee Steve Willis, some kind of hair grease got in my eye and I'm ready to continue fighting. Obviously, Steve Willis did start counting while he was down on his knee, and then the count was just abolished and no knockdown was given. If the knockdown would have been given, we would have seen a new champion of the world. I'm not going to say too much on it, Eddie, because again, I really haven't watched it back. I need to watch it back when I'm able to actually fully focus on it. The other night when I was watching it live, I really can't remember much about it at all. Lamont Roach obviously again started the fight very confidently. I said that. I actually said again on last week's show, his self-belief will take him far in this fight, I felt. And it did. It really did. He shocked a lot of people. He was a huge underdog. But yeah, I'm sure you've got a hell of a lot to say on all of it. And of course, the controversial, should it or shouldn't it have been a knockdown?
Yeah, there's a lot to this. I mean, obviously, early on, there wasn't a lot going on, from either guy. But Lamont Roach did prove right away that he wasn't, going to be one of those guys that just, go a few rounds with him and end up getting knocked out. He had a different, his mentality, his attitude toward it was like no nonsense, kind of thing, which was a good, fresh and refreshing thing to see, which most of the guys kind of start out that way with Tank, but when they feel a few shots, they kind of back off it. But he wasn't backing off it. Like you said, his self-belief really was high, which now, from watching him fight, honestly, before that, even though I bet on him one time, I ain't really seen him fight like that. I might have seen him fight once and don't even remember, but this was a memorable performance because most of the time, and especially as the fight got, went on and Tank started to try to really open up. See, Tank can sit around kind of like how Deontay Wilder would do, even though he's a high-level boxer as well, and kind of allow guys to take a lead and then, end up getting them into a position and stopping them through at some point in the course of through the course of a fight. With this, I think once it got towards like the third or fourth, he starts to, and don't get me wrong, like I said, there wasn't much going on either side. There was a little bit here and there. There was some action, but it was really like careful, placing punches, wasn't really throwing a lot of heavy shots early on necessarily. I mean, there was, some things going on, but not a lot. So Tank got some of the early rounds as well as Roach. It was like a back and forth type of thing. And then Roach really started to pick it up, like to the point where in some of these middle rounds, like I remember he landed a couple really good shots on Tank that actually looked like it kind of buckled him. Now, I don't know that it buckled him to a degree of, he was hurt or, you know what I mean? But you can see like when you get hit with a good shot, your ankle do that little bend in the wrong direction and you kind of get a little stagger with him. And that happened to Tank. Not a lengthy one, but a little quick, kind of situation. And I think it was Roach's ability to counter and his desire and belief that he was willing to stay in there. Even though the shots, when Tank started opening up and started throwing those heavy shots, he stayed in there. And he had the perfect counter punch. He's landing them some good, nice counter right hands, couple counter left hooks, things like that. And it really, I remember watching the fight like, damn, is this ever going to stop? Is this ever going to change? And I'm looking, and there was one period where Tank caught him, I think it was fairly early in the fight, where Tank caught him like a hook or an overhand right or left or something like that. If I can't really remember the exact shot, and he kind of went down, like you get pounded down going toward the ground, and pop back up and kind of lift his chin up as to say, "Oh, that didn't hurt me," but I think it did, and I think that was kind of him selling that he wasn't hurt. But it just proved to me further that he's like, I'm gonna be in here no matter what you do. I'm going to be here. And he just kept fighting like that with that chip on his shoulder the entire time. When Tank started unloading and letting shots go, he started trying to walk him down. He always had an answer. Almost every single time he had an answer. So, and then the issue with the grease in his hair or whatever that he said that happened, and he took the knee. To be honest with you, I'm glad that he didn't give him a knockdown for that. And the reason why I say that is because even for Roach, now Roach would have been happy. Obviously, he gets the belt and he gets that all that that credit and all that, and he probably feels he deserves the win anyway. But I just think it would put like a little black eye on it, kind of not giving him the full credit that he deserved for the performance he put together, and giving him a decision based on that. You know what I mean? Based on that being a part of it. You know what I mean? I think if he was going to get the decision, he should have got the decision just based on his performance, not based on him, Tank having an issue of wardrobe malfunction, if you will, to take a knee and go over and say, oh, I needed to get something, that being an issue during the fight, causing the score to go Roach's way. I just don't like that. And I think Steve Willis did a great job in not counting that as a knockdown, because the controversy would have just been even greater within the fight, and then Tank supporters, and then all of this other stuff. And then, to be honest, he got the ability to do that because of his star power. Most guys wouldn't have had that opportunity. That thing, if somebody would have done something like that and took a knee and then ran to their corner, a lot of times they're going to count that as a knockdown, or they're going to count it as something. You understand what I'm saying? So that, I do think, as much as I'm glad that he didn't, a lot of other guys might not have gotten that kind of home cooking. But he is Tank. He put all the butts in the seats for pretty much. So that's why he got that that nod. But like I said before, Roach really brought the fight. He really was not backing down. He had high level. He showed high level skill, high level poise, toughness. It was all around great performance from Roach. And I think Tank, just that whole situation with the hair and just everything just illustrates, when I used to watch Broner and all of the craziness that he would do, and, some of the shit like him rapping, coming to the, to the ring and all that, which, I guess his confidence, that's great. But I just think sometimes these guys get a little bit too comfortable in that position, and they're not hungry enough, or they're not taking certain things serious enough. Now, of course, they train hard, they spar hard, they do everything else, but that mental to say, look, this is a serious challenge. Everyone that gets in the ring with me, I got to treat them as a real serious challenge, which Roach ended up being anyway. And I think he paid for it. But thank goodness for him that the judges saw it a draw, which I can agree with the draw. You know what I mean? I can definitely agree with the draw. I thought it was close enough, going back and forth, that, like I said, there's some close rounds. There were some rounds that Roach definitely won. There's some rounds that Tank got as well. So it was close enough to where I'm glad they chose that outcome, which I think was deserving. I think it might have been a 6-6 straight, kind of fight. But as bad as Roach is like, man, I know I deserve that decision, which maybe he did, but at least he didn't get a loss when he didn't deserve it. And that's why I like the draw. Fight was actually good. Skill level was high. You know, it's the kind of thing I would love to see again, and I hope they do fight again. And I hope Tank really brings his A+ game, because he's going to need it the next time he fights this guy.
So to reiterate, Eddie, you're controversially saying that you're glad it wasn't counted as a knockdown, but surely, especially as a guy that's been in the ring many, many times for many, many years, surely you can agree with the fact that it's not up to a fighter to decide, let's stop the action because of any reason.
No. Hell no. In fact, if there was a way, let me give you an example. This is a little quick one, right? I got cut in one of my fights years ago. It was my first cut ever, and it was an elbow. So, and I remember being cut, and I'm like, damn, I can't see. So the blood was probably in my eye. I couldn't see, and I couldn't see out the eye. So I said, what am I going to do? All right, well, let me just move in the other direction, which the eye that I could see, and I'll just keep my hand up just so he doesn't land the shot. But no way I could have said, oh, hold up. Something happened. I can't see. There's no difference in that. In fact, the only difference is that it's self-inflicted. Why would you get your hair done like that and have her put grease in your hair where it would get in your eyes to blind you? And I believe that that's what happened. But nobody's going to get that kind of home cooking. That's not how it works. A fighter cannot stop. If he turns his back or takes a knee or whatever and tries to stop, that should be counted as a knockdown, no matter what the situation is. So, yes, am I glad he didn't do it? Yeah, because that's just going to add more fuel to the controversy. And then it's like, did he win? Did he lose? And it takes away from Roach a little bit, I think. Because if he never had that, it wouldn't have been that, whatever. So I think that it's better and I thought Steve Willis did a great job in general with the fight, and he always does. But I like the fact that he didn't add to the controversy. I even like the judges not giving into the total bit of it and them actually making it a draw, giving them a chance to go back and, go back to the drawing board, maybe create another classic for us.
Yeah, it's a good point you make there about, getting elbowed in the eye. It just doesn't sit right with me that Tank pretty much overruled the referee who began to count, and then he'd said no, and the referee stopped counting, and then didn't actually score it as a knockdown. It just doesn't sit right. I just can't think of a reason why or how a fighter can break the action down to his own preferences. And also that little wipe of the eye or whatever it was with the towel in the corner, how did the corner man manage to get the perfect wipe in half a second as well? He come back like nothing. He got it perfect, that corner man. You wonder how many times he's wiped his face like that. He got it straight away. That was it was just weird. I don't know, but I feel like it would have been better if somehow he could have maybe communicated with the referee first.
Yeah. I mean, if he would have said, I agree. If he would have said maybe look, hold on, I can't see, something's burning my eye, whatever. Maybe he then stops it. But even then, it's look, this is a professional fight, fool. You can't back out and say, oh, hold on a second. You can't. Because if that was the case, then if you get a little too tired, you'd be able to do the same shit. But you can't, because that's not part of it. You understand what I'm saying? And if it's his star power, it's the work that he's put in to get himself to this position that granted him that opportunity. That's just the truth.
Anyway, let's move on. I feel for Roach, like I say, but let's move on. That then brings the review part of the show to a close. It's now time to welcome this week's special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former WBO Super Bantamweight Champion of the world. It is, of course, Mr. Jessie Magdaleno. Jessie, welcome on the show, my friend.
No, thank you. It's a pleasure to be on here.
It's a pleasure to have you on here. So, Jessie, we like I say, haven't spoke to you before, so welcome once again. It's been a long time coming. We finally got you on. If you don't mind, I'd like to step into my virtual time machine with you just a moment. I'd like to go back to November the 5th, 2016. I'm sure the date is one that you won't forget, the Thomas and Mack, the night you became champion of the world after dethroning Nonito Donaire. Talk to me about that moment, Jessie, achieving your boyhood dream and also sharing a ring with one of the best fighters in the sport at the time, a future Hall of Famer for sure.
Yeah, it's like just like you said, it's a day that I'll never forget. It's a day that I've dreamt for many, many, many years as a child, as a teenager, and as a young adult. That's always been something that I wanted to accomplish and, hopefully to get to one day. And with God by my side, I say I made it. I made it against a former world champion, a legend, a guy who was, an assassin in the boxing ring, against Nonito Donaire. I give my respects to that man. But yeah, it was a wonderful night, and it was something that I had on my eye as a young kid, and I was able to accomplish, a big dream of mine.
Yeah, absolutely was. Fantastic win for yourself. Your first offence, you made quick work of Adilson dos Santos, but after that, man oh man, from a fan's perspective, that Dogboe fight was a fun fight to watch. You had him down in the first, he had you down in the fifth, it all came to an end in the 11th, but it was a fun fight while it lasted. What do you remember about that one? How good was Isaac that night as well?
It was a great fight. It was a great fight. Nothing. I don't take nothing away from Isaac. He caught me on he just caught me on a bad night that I had. Like I said, no excuses. I'm here to not talk bad about him. It's just the weight was a difficult cut for me. The training camp was great and all, but it just all comes down to the difficult weight cut I had. Going into that fight. But yeah, it was a huge fan favorite fight. It was a great fight. We went back and forth, and it was something to remember, something that I took not only as a loss, but I took as a learning lesson to always be prepared, to always be mentally ready and physically ready, and like I said, it was just he caught me at a bad time, and that was it. And I would love to fight him again. I would love to go at it with him one more time, if it was possible. But later down the road, it never happened. But thankfully, I was in there, and I came out great and was able to come back, stronger than ever.
And talking of coming back, Jessie, since that night, you've been pretty inactive, I think it's fair to say. Why is that?
I had a lot of manager issues at that time. I was dealing with the manager who was only putting me to fight once a year. It was just due to inactivity, a lot of inactivity with him. He wasn't getting me the fights that I wanted. He wasn't getting me, what I needed as a fighter, and that was activity. And that was, a huge downfall of my boxing career, as I could say, was just the inactivity, fighting once a year. And then getting a fight, surprisingly, and only with 6 weeks to work, it was very difficult for me as a fighter, to prepare myself for these type of fights because of his inactivity as a manager and my inactivity as a fighter.
And I don't want to spend too much time discussing losses, but obviously it's important to mention, the past two losses that you're coming off. But they were at the hands of very good fighters, obviously Raymond Ford and Brandon Figueroa. The Figueroa loss being the most recent one. But, you showed enough in that fight, despite obviously being stopped, to prove, though, that you still have a lot to offer. I mean, Brandon Figueroa is a nightmare style for almost anyone, but he didn't look his usual self against you that night. You played your part in that. He was not having things all his own way, and obviously he was the bigger man. Talk to me about that one.
Yeah, and due to again the inactivity, the inactivity, I was out for a little over a year and a half. I had mentally retired. I didn't come out to physically say it or or talk about it, but I was at that point where I retired after the Raymond Ford. I I didn't want to box anymore. I didn't have that hunger in me anymore. I didn't I didn't want to do it anymore. But obviously I came back to the gym. I got a phone call one day and they're like, "Hey, we have an offer. We know you're not, into the sport mentally anymore. You're more on the outskirts. Hey, okay, just one more time. Let's see how it goes. Just one more time." And that's exactly what I took off. I just said, "Okay, let me just give it one more time, one more shot and see." But due to the inactivity and due to, I was overweight by a lot. Like I said, I was out more than I was in, but that sparked me back up. It gave me that fire under my butt again to get back to it and show what I was capable of. And that night, for as long as it lasted, I know I gave Brandon Figueroa hell. I know I gave him hell. I know I gave him a hard time. I even felt like I was winning the fight, and he was doing his thing, putting a lot of pressure, putting a lot of throwing a lot of punches, but he not once didn't hurt me. Even the body shot, he just caught me. I felt like it was a lucky shot, and but it fueled a lot of fire under me, and it made me realize who I am and what I can do with a proper training camp.
Yeah, I think it's important to say as well. Obviously, you were coming off at that time 13 months out of the ring, and it was a tough comeback fight. And yeah, you're 100% right. It was more than competitive. I think it actually surprised a lot of people. Even though you lost the fight, you showed a lot in that fight. But yeah, let's talk about the main reason that we've got you on. You're going to be returning to the ring March the 22nd in California against Luis Coria. The fight takes place on a Pro Box card. What do you know about your opponent? And also, what should fans expect to see from this 2025 version of Jessie Magdaleno?
This time around, I'm just a lot more confident. I've been training really, really hard again with Jorge Competio. We've been to my old roots. I've been sparring Emiliano Vargas. I've been sparring Joseph Macedo. Some good young prospects that are up and coming that will show the world who they are. And they've been giving me all the great work. It's been helping me a lot, and I feel like the young me again, the young old version of me that was aggressive, that was a heavy power puncher, and just getting back to my roots. I think that's what this camp has brought back out of me. And I honestly haven't left the gym since the last fight against Brandon Figueroa. And that's helped me a lot, and it's helped me secure myself back to where I needed to be again.
No, that's great to hear. That really is great to hear. I wanted to ask you this question. I wanted to throw this one in, Jessie, just because when I really think about your career, you've boxed so many different styles. Like, we've mentioned most of the guys, Raymond Ford, Brandon Figueroa, Nonito Donaire, and others. Who would you say is the best opponent that you've ever been in the ring with in a pro fight?
I have to say Nonito Donaire. He just taught me how to be a better fighter, when to be aggressive and when to box, against a heavy puncher like himself. That's what I feel brought the best out of me, fighting Donaire, because I know I had to be on my A game at all times. I know I had to be the best version of myself at every given second of the 3 minutes of each round, because at any given moment he could rip your head off. He was that guy to do that. And I think that's why I choose Donaire as, being the best fighter that I faced, in my career.
You're obviously smart enough to not look too far ahead of this upcoming fight, but what would your plans be after this one? Obviously, you mentioned about losing hunger, regaining the hunger. Where is your head at in terms of the next step?
I think this time around, my head is definitely a lot more clear than it was before. After I lost to Raymond Ford, I fell into a deep hole. I fell into depression. I fell into a dark place where I've never been at in my life. You know, I'm always a cheerful person. I'm always a happy guy. I like to bring other people up. I like to make sure everybody's, happy and content when I'm around. After that loss, it took a toll on me. It took a toll on me because yet again, I felt like I let myself down. I felt like I let my team down, and most of all, I felt like I left my family down. But after getting out of after getting out of that dark place, I said, what can possibly stop me now? What can possibly put me at the edge again if I already, went through hell and came out perfectly fine. And just knowing that and having my son around, having my close family around really showed me who I was, and it really brought the best out of me. And that's why I'm here again, going for round two, and showing and proving to myself that what I'm really capable of. I know I'm capable of a lot. I have a naturally ability of having natural power, natural, timing and everything. And I think this time around is different. I have a whole new team around me. I have a strong relationship with my coach. I have a strong relationship with just the small circle that I have around me this time, and that has helped me, tremendously a lot. And I'm very thankful for the people that I have with me right now.
Jessie, you speak there about depression, and obviously this is now, a big thing in boxing. There's a lot of guys now that talk openly, finally, about suffering with mental health issues. It's great that you're out of that spot now and that you can look back on that and actually find strength to move on from it. But I want to ask you, because I feel like I could tell in your voice there when you was talking about some of it, how bad did things get, if you can say?
It got bad. It got real bad. It got to the point where I was ready to, take it all away and not worry about it no more. I was at that point in my life where I gave up on myself. Something that I've never done in my life. In my 33 years of being alive, I've never given up on myself. And that time I was ready to just let everything go and forget about it all. That's how close I got. And but there's always been one voice in my head, and that's always been my son. And I felt like a coward if I was to do that. Like, I knew I wouldn't rest in peace if that was, the option. And I'm just glad I didn't do it. I'm very thankful, and it made me a stronger person. I know now it's still a touchy feeling on me, and it still gets to me about it, but I know deep down I'm doing the right thing, and I know that I know I'm gonna be better this time around, and that's what fueled the fire under me again.
I'm really proud of you, Jessie. I have to say that I know that we don't have this deep, relationship or bond from years and years of interviews. Unfortunately, it's only our first one, but I'm really proud to hear this. I really mean that. I've spoke to a hell of a lot of guys in interviews over the years, former fighters, fighters that are still boxing that have suffered severely. So I'm really proud of you for that, my friend. And talking about it,
Thank you.
It's a massive thing. Coming down to my last couple of questions for you, I wanted to get your reaction to the weekend, the very controversial knee that Tank Davis took in his fight against Lamont Roach. What's your view on that?
It was a great fight. It was a great fight. They went at it. I think what threw Tank Davis off was that he didn't have an opponent who gave up. He didn't have an opponent who was just there to collect the check and just walk away with, a ton of money. He had a Lamont Roach in front of him who was willing to win, who had the ability to win, who was there to show the world and shock the world. And I think that's what kind of threw Davis off. I don't think it was so much the grease in the hair. I don't think it was so much the that messing him up, I think it was just more the fact that Lamont Roach was game. He was game, and that's something that Tank Davis hasn't seen in a while. I think that is something that really messed with Tank Davis's mindset, and I believe that's why he took that knee. He took that knee to kind of frustrate and take that momentum off of Lamont Roach, because Lamont Roach was in a very, very good momentum. His skill wise, he showed out that fight, and he showed everybody, who he is. And I think that's why Tank Davis did that. It's a veteran move. It was a smart move. And at the end of the day, they need to run it back. They need to fight again, and they need to show the world, once again, another good fight. And I think that's what they need to do.
Do you feel like it should have been called a knockdown?
Most definitely. The ref counted. The ref definitely counted. I think he got up to the count of 4. And then I don't know why the judges didn't put down a 10-8, or, it could have even possibly been a 9-8, because Tank Davis was active that round as well.
Yeah.
But it's very hard when you're going against the champion. You have to really show out against the champion. You gotta, be on your A game. I'm not saying Lamont Roach wasn't on his A game. He was very on his A game. But when it comes down to that type of stuff, you have to really show out and give it your all.
And my final real question for you, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here, but I have to do this every time we speak to a fighter from overseas. I love asking this question, but if you have one, favourite UK fighter, if you have one, it can be any era. It can be a guy who retired 700 years ago. It can be a guy that's still boxing now. Who springs to mind?
My favorite one was Prince Nassim Ahmed. He was a guy that I looked up to. He was a guy that, a showman. He was, just an outstanding fighter, very tricky fighter, great balance, great flexibility, heavy power puncher. Prince Nassim Ahmed was, my all-time favorite UK fighter, and he still is to this day.
Yeah, that is literally the most popular answer when I ask that question. So you're in a very popular club with that one. Just before we let you go, Jessie, if you've got any closing words to the listeners, particularly the guys listening here in the UK, I'm sure that you and your brother have been probably shown lots of love from the UK fans over the years. If you've got a little closing message, that'd be great before we wrap things up, my friend.
Just, thank you for continue following my career. Thank you for, showing me my brother's love, and to me, the Magdaleno family. Thank you for showing us love, and just stay tuned in. March 22nd, you guys will see another fan favorite fight with Jessie Magdaleno versus Luis Coria, and I think I just want to say keep continuing to follow my career, and I'm gonna show everybody, this time around, what I'm really capable of, and I promise not to let anybody down this time.
Hey, you won't let anyone down at all, Jessie. I'm sure of that. Listen, my friend, it's been a real pleasure speaking with you this week. Glad to have finally got you on. Thanks for your time, and best of luck on the 22nd, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you again for having me. It's a pleasure, and it's always a great time and a nice time talking to you.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part is the news part. Just one piece of news to bring you. It's that this crazy card is going down. This Riyadh season card's going down in Times Square, New York. We're going to see on this bill Teofimo Lopez stepping in with Arnold Barboza Jr. for the WBO Super Lightweight World title. We're going to see Devin Haney stepping in with Jose Ramirez, and we're also going to see Ryan Garcia returning to the ring against Rolando Romero. The date for that is May the 2nd, which is a Friday, in Times Square, New York. I believe there's going to be a few more fights added to that, but 3 nice juicy fights there. And yeah, it's definitely a date to look forward to. That's really it. That's the one piece of news just at the moment. Moving now then to the preview part. This one goes down tomorrow, Friday, March the 7th at York Hall in Bethnal Green, London. We're going to see over here, it's Trinity Entertainment Boxing Show, a apparently. But over here, it must be something to do with Frank Warren, this I would have thought. But over here anyway, we've got Ezra Taylor, 10-0, no opponent just yet. That's over 8 rounds there. Hopefully they sort one for Ezra in time. I think Ezra did a bit of commentary in Bournemouth on the weekend. We also have friend of the show, Sam Noakes. Friend of the show, Sean Noakes, 9-0, looking to move to double figure wins. He gets in with Jermaine Edwards, who's 11-1. This one's for the English welterweight title over 10 rounds. All the very best there to Sean Noakes. Also on that card as well, return to the ring for once upon a time prospect, and a decent prospect at that, Mitchell Smith, now 17-1. He's back here against Christian Narvaez, who is 17-84 with 7 draws. That one's over 6 rounds at super lightweight. Moving now then to the Royal Albert Hall in Kensington, London, United Kingdom. This one goes down again on Friday, tomorrow. It is an all-female card. We've got just female fights from top to bottom. We've got, I believe, 6 or 7 fights on the entire bill. Let's touch on the 2 or the 3 main ones. We've got Karis Artingstall, 6-0. She's boxing here over 10-2s against Raven Chapman, 9-1. I think that's going to be a really good fight. Raven Chapman's one loss came to Sky Nicholson, and Raven Chapman was quite disappointed in that fight, but Sky Nicholson was very impressive in that fight. For what it's worth, I think Raven Chapman could cause some issues here. I think that's a very interesting fight. Artingstall's not going to be stopping Chapman. That one will either go to distance, I'd say. I don't think that's a bold pick by any means. But I think Raven Chapman could that's a good fight. I've got to say, it might be worth even looking at the price of Raven Chapman. She's got a good style when she can get it all working, all clicking. We've got Natasha Jonas, friend of the show, 16-2 with a draw. She steps in with Lauren Price, 8-0. This one for the IBF, IBO and WBC welterweight world titles over 10-2s. Of course, I've got to back Natasha Jonas, being a friend of the show. I hope she can pull this one off, but it's going to be a tough ask against Lauren Price, who is looking very, very good. Seems to be impressing and improving every fight now. There was a moment where I think, when she turned pro with her partner, Karis Artingstall, they're both boxing on the same card here again. When they both turned over, it was a little bit like, they're both going the distance every time, both barely losing a round. Who's the more impressive one? But I think that Lauren Price, in my opinion, just my opinion, has started to kind of pull away a little bit. She seems to be impressing a bit more than Karis at the moment. Things could change, but again, she is a big favourite against Natasha Jonas on Friday. It's going to be a good fight though, I think that. And again, you'd have to back it to go the distance. But yeah, I'm pulling for Natasha Jonas. Also on the card, another friend of the show, Caroline Dubois, defending her WBC lightweight world title, again over 10-2s. She's 10-0 with a draw. She steps in with Bomi Rishin, who is 18-2 with 3 draws. All the very best there to Caroline Dubois. Moving now then to this one. Again, it goes down tomorrow. There's a lot of fights going on this Friday. This one's going to be live on Channel 5. We have over here in the Brighton Centre in Sussex, we have Michael Conlon returning to the ring. 18-3. He's back in an 8-rounder against Assad Khan, who's 19-5 with a draw. I don't know what Michael Conlon's got left. Hasn't boxed in over a year. I thought he retired, to be totally honest with you, but he finds himself back on this undercard. But the main event is Harlem Eubank, 20-0, friend of the show. He's fighting here for the vacant IBF Intercontinental welterweight title. He steps in with Tyrone McKenna. Once a decent fighter, 24-5 with a draw. I think his best days are behind him. I think actually he retired as well and come back out of retirement. I'm expecting Harlem Eubank to have too much for McKenna, but it'll probably go the distance because McKenna's quite tough, to be honest with you. So Harlem Eubank on points would be my pick, I think, there. Moving now then to the final card to mention. It's the only card that we're mentioning that actually goes down on the Saturday, and it's a very, very small card, but It involves a friend of the show, and any time that a friend of the show is fighting, we mention their fight, no matter how big or small it is, or where it is in the world. So this one goes down at the Red Owl Boxing Arena in Houston, Texas, USA. We have in the home corner Hannah Rapp, 4-0. This one's over 8-2s for the NABF featherweight featherweight title, of course, the women's. And in the other corner, friend of the show, Melissa Odessa Parker, currently 6-3. She's had a bit of a tough time recently in her pro career. Hopefully she can, turn her career around and get a win here, but she's probably up against this other lady. I don't know anything about her, but yeah, I don't think that they would have taken this fight if they weren't, fully confident in Hannah Rapp. So all the best there, though, to Melissa Odessa Parker. That then brings the preview part to a close. It was very much bite-sized, not too much in terms of, comparison of last weekend with all the madness of that entire Saturday night and early morning hours of Sunday. But anyway, like I say, in Part 1 we did the review part, then we welcomed our special guest, yet another world champion on the podcast. In Part 2 we did the news, it was brief, and we did the preview part, it was brief. The final thing for me to do is to come in with the outro, which I'll do in just a few seconds. Okay, and this wraps up episode 489 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A massive shout out to this week's special guest, the former WBO Super Bantamweight Champion of the World, that man being Mr. Jessie Magdaleno. What a great guy, all the very best to him in his fight on the 22nd. The biggest thanks of all goes out to you, the listeners. That is the same message every single week. Thanks once again for tuning in. That's about all though from myself. Enjoy your weekends, people. There's not too much to watch, and stay safe as always. We'll see you all again same time next week. Goodbye.